Right. So many people have their own definition of diversity, but to keep it more simple, I'm going to be taking this definition from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Diversity is the conditions of having or being composed of different elements, and those elements can't deprive from intersectionality. Intersectionality is more on a personal level, just one person, while diversity is a group of people. The reason why diversity is important is because it can eliminate biases in people's life. And not only that, it could also unify people and it could help you see in different perspectives. You may think one way about someone that's like placed in a group or you're partnered with, but once you see all the different intersectionalities that they have that they would like to share with you, your state of mind will change. This is important in a classroom setting because students are still developing. They have different opinions, they have different biases different people like um, from different people like their parents, different groups that they're in, and social media, since that's a big factor in people's lives now. And the reason why this is important to be taught at a young age is because they're eventually going to put it into practice in their real world life. I personally have dealt with oppression in my life, and one of these examples is in a classroom setting, even in college. I take a lot of science courses because I'm a science education major, and in these courses, we're usually put into different groups because group work is known in the science community, like it's a big thing. Um, and in these groups, like there's typically either like one or two people who have darker skin tones, and the rest are usually Caucasian. And every time I try to contribute, or like another person that's also a darker skin tone tries to contribute, we usually get brushed off. Um, and they're like, okay, like thanks for your input. And once like the professor comes around and asks us like, oh, what do we think about the answer? Like the answer is, um, oftentimes they're like the professor's like, oh, it's almost there, but not quite yet. And that's where me or the other person would come in and be like, oh, so would it be like this, or like is it geared towards this? And they're like, yeah, that's where we're trying to be headed to. And oftentimes it makes you feel like, okay, at least I know what's right in this situation, but I just typically brush it off because it happens to me quite often.
And now I can safely say that I don't experience those oppressions. In fact, it would seem that if I was in an example like Williams, that I could experience a privilege in that sense and not experience a feeling of oppression in that certain circumstance. And that's where I think it's incredibly important to you know um, acknowledge that and understand that, so when I see those types of things happening, I can actually take action and try to give voice to a partner like William, and um, acknowledge that he's putting on all this work, and he knows what he's doing. So I think it's just incredibly important to understand, what is contributing to privileges and oppression in our society, and figure out how we can represent everybody in our classrooms, regardless of whatever uh, factors in their lives, and try to figure out what in our society is changeable. Well, everything's changeable, but what we can do about that and lift up everyone, regardless of you know what these factors of intersectionality are portraying or putting on to members of our society. Um, and then in the future, I plan to give give a voice to everybody in our class, in my classes. I want to uh, learn about the society that I live in, the neighborhoods that I live in, and where I'll be teaching, and give a voice to all my students, and so they can see their culture, their nationality, gender, all represented in what I would be. I'd have a math class with all that. So um, my goal would just to my goal would be to just give everybody a voice and make everybody feel represented. And I think it's our job to just make everybody feel represented and seen.